So, Sama Astrea, formerly known as Hannah, so happy to have you here today. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So, just do a well. Let's just go right in to tell me about what you do, because I only have a very like inkling of an idea. So, go all in.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talking to you. So I am a conscious sexuality coach. I help people with their self and sexual expression to release shame and trauma related to their sexuality and expression of self. I loved helping women activate their inner erotic goddess and men rediscover their dominance. And I'm also a practicing Shibari transformer. And I also work in the field of NLP, helping people get the tools of NLP and other related tools to transform their life. So I stay busy.
Yes. Do you incorporate the Shibari and the NLP into the conscious, the embodied sexuality? And that seems like that's a coaching practice. Is that correct?
Yes. So I do my own coaching for my own brand and with a rebrand in progress right now. And Shibari is one of the modalities that I can use with my clients. And I do utilize hypnosis and sound healing in the sessions. It's really fun.
Beautiful. Do you do most of your work in person, or do you do some virtually as well?
Yeah, I can work virtually. I liked working in person. It just gives me more to do, and I can also help support people on Zoom as well, just as effectively. Not with Shibari, but the other modalities.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of people that don't know what Shibari is, and I want to get into that. But first, and so I made a notation because I want to circle back to that. So
Cool.
I'd like to know more about how you got involved in doing what you're doing.
In NLP or as a coach?
Particularly with the emphasis on the sexuality coaching, why, how you got led to do that and why you feel it's so important.
Yeah, I love that question. It's been a journey of coaching evolution, and I went into personal training and fitness to get out of the restaurant industry. And just since that journey just evolved from becoming a bodybuilder, finding my NLP trainer and NLP coach, and then discovering using those tools to overcome body dysmorphia, eating issues, and that led me down the path of life coaching, and then started working for the company I work with now, Jaeger Training, and then took a break. But I had this download when I was 13 that I just had this image of me helping people with their intimacy. And I just started listening to that calling like a year and a half ago. I was like, there's a reason for this. And I had overcome a lot of relationship blocks, a lot of sexuality blocks with my personal development trainings and NLP trainings. And just, I don't know, found this newfound passion to start up my business again and help people in the realm of relationships. And I actually have an interesting story with my sexuality. I had the first 4 years of my sex life was excruciating, and I had no one I felt I could share that with. And it turned out to be a physiological issue my fifth doctor finally discovered when I was 20, and I had a procedure to fix it. And now I love sex and it's great. But that's another kind of fuel to the fire of why I'm so passionate about people being able to express their sexuality, speak up for themselves, especially in the bedroom. But yeah, I'm obsessed with this work, and I just like gobble up as much knowledge as I can about it.
Awesome. I'm sorry you had that experience, and I'm so grateful that you kept looking for a practitioner that would help you uncover what that was all about, where it was like an anatomical or physiological type of thing that was fixable. Do you have any idea how common or prevalent that might be, that with women or men, that they're having something going on with their structure or their physiology? Well, we've I just, as I'm saying that, my brain's going, well, we often hear too as like sexual dysfunction, like women can't be orgasmic or men with erectile dysfunction. And so I think the perception is that it only happens when men get older, or if women have trauma and they're frigid, or those kind of things. But like, so can you speak to like those things a little bit, and also how common or uncommon it might be to have structural or other types of challenges outside of those?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the issue I had was a congenital one, is pretty rare, but I think it hits like 2 to 3% of the population. So it's still like a number of people that have it. It's an easy fix. And there's different physiological things that can happen with sexuality, but also mental blocks. And what's interesting is the mind and body are so connected. And I think I was also anchored to the first few experiences, because what was happening is when I shifted my beliefs around for the first issue, I was actually able to have sex that wasn't excruciating by the age of 20, but it still wasn't normal. It still wasn't like um how most people can just jump into it, right? So there was that. When I shifted my beliefs and let go of identifying with the problem, and was just like, well, maybe I just need to stop having this belief that sex is excruciating every time. Maybe if I just like come at it with a new lens, it can shift. And so it did. My body adjusted more. And I think that happens a lot with women in orgasm, because I had a belief I couldn't orgasm. And when I finally just gave up and stopped trying to like force everything and relax, that's when it could happen. And different performance issues, a lot of times that's related to a subconscious block, subconscious event. So that's something as I work with clients to help them connect more into their body and be able to perform sexually in a way they want to, by letting go of what's trapped in the subconscious.
So it seems to me that you developed the limiting beliefs based on your experiences, and then you had to let that go. And our perceptions about sexuality are so screwed up as a society. I can imagine that a lot of people go into their sexual relationships or their sexual life with so much baggage that they're not, and then as they're having these experiences, they're getting more and more baggage. So, and I hate to, I hesitate now, like maybe I shouldn't say the word baggage, because I don't want to make light of the fact of anybody's trauma or what they've been taught, because this is some serious, I mean, a lot of people have been exposed to some serious stuff. So I do not mean to take that lightly. And
Of course.
we both know a lot of women who have had a tremendous amount of sexual trauma and still have gone on to release all of that and have very healthy sexual relationships. This is just, outstanding and so incredible. So the potential to heal and experience healthy sexuality, even when there has been a significant amount of trauma, is definitely there. So I imagine that you come across all kinds of things, women who have had trauma, women who have been, and you work with both women and men. So I'm sure this is true for both genders, and all of their sexual expressions, whether it's a same sex, whatever their sexuality is. And I imagine too, when we still, even though it's more open now about other people's choices, I mean, everybody's preferences are more acceptable. With some people, there's still, there's still some parts of our society that frown upon those things, or people are raised in ways where they, that might complicate it even more, because they feel like people are going to judge them about their sexual choices. So that's a lot to unpack. And I imagine you see all of those things. So can you speak to that a little bit about what you see and how you help people move past those things?
Yeah, definitely. I want to add too, kind of connecting to the last question. I think there's a lack of education as well. I think there's a lack of understanding our bodies, understanding our expectations, and kind of the role of societal programming as well. So, I mean, have you noticed that a lot of times in school or in public areas, if a man has an erection, he gets shamed for it, or he may feel embarrassed, or just tries to hide or, afraid that someone may accuse him of something, what happens is that programs the body that it's wrong and shameful to have an erection. And then when he's in the bedroom and he's trying to have an erection, what happens? His body is not always, that's just one little example. But also, I think one issue with women having painful sex is not warmed up enough. It can take up to 20 minutes for the vaginal canal to tint, and it means it's actually ready for penetration. And a lot of times women can get excited, or they just don't speak up, or they don't have enough lubrication. It's something called non-concordance, which when we're turned on, we may not lubricate. And for men, when they're turned on, they may not have an erection. So that's all very common. And I think that's something that people don't talk about because there's so much shame, but that's another kind of layer to all of this. And so my role is to really just get deep into the clients, model the world. What are they doing? What are they practicing? What is the programming that, like, do they feel shameful? Were they shamed at all? Do they have an experience that was a significant emotional event? Because not everyone relates to the word trauma, but any significant emotional event that was sudden trauma can be little bits of trauma for a long period of time or a lot at once. So the body takes that differently. So I work with the client to help them let go of whatever is in the past that's holding them back so that they can be fully expressed, they can speak up for themselves, understand what they want. And it's really catered to them and what their goals are.
You just work with people individually?
For now, yes, one-on-one.
What kind of things, you said you're working with them to achieve their goals. So what kind of goals are people asking?
Yeah, I've had women that struggle with orgasm. I've had people who, a lot of times, when it's interesting because people will come to me for sexuality, and a lot of times there's something deeper. So there can be familial trauma, relationship trauma, just there's a root cause. A lot of times it's related to self-worth, it's related to speaking up for oneself, and it's also kind of the education. So it's teaching people too, first of all, they're not broken. Like, whatever they're dealing with, if they struggle getting it up, there's root causes, and it's helping them realize, okay, what is environmental, what is mental, what is emotional, and what's physical. And mismatched libidos is another thing. Not being able to drop into the body. That's another one. So being too in the mind, not being able to achieve, orgasm or climax. But also a lot of times relationships will come up. So having relationships that are healthy, speaking up for one's boundaries, that's really huge. And how to navigate and communicate with ease in a relationship.
When you say mismatched libidos, I understand what that means. Some people may not. It's just the desire for sex may be different. And we have that cultural conditioning that men are always ready and men always want sex. And so that's the thing that pops into my mind. And by the way, in my experience, that has not been true. But I'd like to break out of that stereotypical bit a piece and have you speak to that. Like, I imagine that you see mismatched on both sides, not just that perception that men always want it, because I think I know a lot of women who are much more sexual than the men in their lives. So I'd love to have you speak to that.
Yeah. So sometimes, the female may have more libido, more sex drive, or, in female relationships, it just one partner or the other partner just wants it more often or wants it a certain way. And it's really just about communicating needs, figuring out where the relationship values, because we're driven and our behavior is motivated by our values. And a lot of times conflict can be created by different values. And we have values for platonic relationships, values for romantic, values for sex. So if one person has a value of having sex frequently, and the other person wants it maybe less frequently but longer, that's a mismatched value. And if those desires are present in the subconscious, then that's going to be influencing the behavior. Um, so it's about how can we create a win-win for both people. And part of that is self-pleasure practice and destigmatizing self-pleasure when you're in relationship. Part of it could be hormonal. And I will say I've used hypnosis to regulate my hormones, so that is something that's available. And then part of it too can be environmental. It can be stress. Sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, if you're constantly having to, be going go, 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 it can take some slow down, dropping into the body and learning tools to do that effectively and efficiently.
Excellent. I imagine you see quite a bit of, or maybe not, maybe that's just my perception, that you see a lot of stigma around self-pleasure, because it's also something that society has taught us, or at least from my perspective, I was raised in that way. And there was a lot of shame and, religious teaching that came into my perceptions of my own sexuality when I was younger in particular.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of shame around self-pleasure. I have some experiences of just being a little girl and uh, not like feeling like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And it's definitely a healthy part of of life. I think we all need to have a relationship to ourselves, and self-pleasure is not just sexual. It's all kinds of pleasure. Um, and I wanted to add too that what was I going to say? I also help people who are in non-monogamous relationships. So I think one issue sometimes, not always, but it can be relying on our partner to fulfill all of our sexual needs and desires. And when we have this codependency on them for our sex life, that mindset can inhibit us from feeling sexually expressed. So I encourage people to really explore, like, is your relationship working for you? And how can you feel if you have these kinks or these desires that your partner just definitely cannot fill? We talk about, okay, how can we help you fulfill that? So it's opening up the model of the world of what it means to be in relations with others, and how can we just create win-wins in our life.
I love that conversation, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's something I hadn't really thought a lot about within the context of my own life, and have become very aware over the last couple of years that just like some people prefer, some women prefer women, some men prefer men, some like both, some people like to be monogamous, some people don't. So it has really expanded my my language and my curiosity around just the range of things that I think are healthy, and trying to understand your own desires and then be completely accepting others, because so many people have been shunned for like non-traditional choices, and what kind of how much pain and shame and heartbreak that has caused. And so I love to hear people who are openly talking about polygamy, or any kind of situation that feels right for them, and without stigma, and just be like, this, I don't feel like I'm meant to be in a monogamous relationship. I'm polyamorous. And I have some clients who have used that have some that are trying to explore those kind of things, that maybe they're realizing that they're not meant to be, or not desiring to be in a monogamous relationship. And some that are maybe just doing that exploration to open up their minds and see and confirm if that's what they're looking for. And I think that's a really, really important consideration and conversation for people to have with themselves. And I imagine, I just love when people can speak about that openly, because why do we need to judge people for their choices? As long as they're aware of what they want and they're doing healthy things, great. Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm so passionate about consent, because it's really all about consent when you're doing open relationships. And if you're creating win-wins, if it's all, and the broad umbrella term is ethical non-monogamy. So if you're practicing ethical non-monogamy, everyone is consenting. Everyone is, it's enthusiastic consent. That is to me what consent is. It's not begrudging consent or resentful consent, which in my first open relationship, it was definitely some resentful consent. But I learned over time how to better communicate or identify those needs.
It's so fascinating. I had the opportunity at a small gathering. I don't even know how long ago. I've lost track of time so much with COVID and everything that's happened.
Yeah.
But so it was a group of women, and there was a woman in that circle that was polyamorous and was participating in sex parties, and that was something that I didn't even know existed. So she was so comfortable in her body and in her sexuality. So I was just fascinated to hear her talk, because she was so confident about everything, and they were completely new concepts to me. And she loved to talk about it. So I got an earful that night, which I was very grateful for. And I got to ask some questions that really piqued my curiosity. And one of them was about health, STDs and things of that nature. So she told me how when you're in a polyamorous situation or participating in things of that nature, how you maintain your health. So I was just really grateful for her openness. I'm just curious, because you seem so open and accepting of all of those things. Have you ever met anyone that I want to, like, the first word that came to mind is shocking, and that's not really the right word, but have you found somebody in a situation with preferences or desires, or that you just took you by surprise, like, oh, that's something I hadn't considered before?
Yeah, I mean, I think ethical non-monogamy found me. I was kind of like curious and wanting to try it, but it just kind of whacked me in the back of the head. I was intimate with someone, and then I found out, oh, they're poly. I just, in my mind, my model of the world was like, oh, he must just be single. And then I found out after the fact, I was like, oh, and my stomach dropped. I was like, oh gosh, okay, I really like this person. I'm open to try this. And I have a lot of tools, so that helps. That helps with all the triggers and shit. So but yeah, I started to like it. I have had I think, yeah, it's just like we have sexual edges, and I think in the past, like, poly was something that's like, oh, that's too much. That's kind of weird. But kink, I used to think kink was strange, and I was actually doing some kinky things, and then I didn't realize I was practicing kink with my partners, and I was like, man, kink is strange. I thought shibari was strange, and when I actually tried a lot of things that I thought was strange, it was like, oh, there's actually some juiciness in this. I actually kind of like this. So yeah, I think a lot of times the things that trigger us are something we can learn from that. Their triggers are our teachers. It's something I say. And I think I think people should try things, should be open to try things in a safe way. And because you never know, like, I never thought there's certain things I would play, certain ways I would play. And when I tried it, I was like, oh, this is fun. So
Love that you said that, because I think I just, my brain being raised in Catholicism is going back to like whole Quaker, mission position type of strictness within sexual expression, and how there's so many more possibilities than that. And what you also said about you went into a relationship without being aware that there was another person involved in there. And so I think what you had said before, that that whole consent part about being open is really, really important. And I've had friends that have said this beautifully, like, if you go into a social situation or a dating website or things like that, and you're not being completely transparent about what you're looking for, not only are you not going to be satisfied in what you find, or who you meet, but you're also, I don't want to use the word deceiving, but it's just it's cheating any other person, because then they can't, if they're not aware of your full desires, then they can't take them into consideration and actually know whether or not it's something that they agree with and are aligned with. So I think people are afraid, especially when they're making choices that are outside of, the norm of society. But the more people who speak up and have those conversations, I think the more people will find that there's a lot more people with similar interests. And everybody's just been hiding. So it's going to give permission for other people to do the same.
Yeah. It's kind of an art, I will say, dating when you practice E&M. I think it's very important to be open and honest. It's because some people will date people that are like, yeah, I'll try it, I'll do it for you. It's just that's a very it's just like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So just being prepared for anything. When you're dating someone new to poly and they're willing to try it for you, but it's not something they're excited about, it's just you got to be careful there.
Yeah, I think you and I actually witnessed that when we were in retreat together a couple months ago, because there was a couple there that they were in an open relationship, and it felt to me, my perception was that one of the partners really did not wanted to do that for her partner because she loved him so much, but it didn't really seem like she was comfortable, and that was really the right thing for her. And maybe she was just letting go of some of her own, some of the things that she had picked up over the course of her lifetime that were making her question that is okay, and maybe she really is okay, but there was definitely some tension within that where it didn't feel like they were super aligned with that being really working really well for them. So it's interesting to watch that. So I think it's important to be as vocal as you can, and everybody knows, right, that we as human beings, we're in a constant state of evolution. So where we might think we are right now, or what we think we want right now, might not actually be what we want. So we also have to have flexibility and openness, like, well, I'm not sure, let's try it. And then 3 months later be like, yeah, I wanted to try it, and it's not working for me. So
I mean, radical honesty with self is definitely required, and poly is like it's like its own transformation journey. I grew so much my first year doing it, and it requires a lot of up-leveling, communication, community support. I will say, like, I needed friends with experience in E&M. I'll say for short, ethical non-monogamy. So I reached out to them like frequently, like, hey, I'm feeling this, or I'm experiencing this, help me through this. And luckily, they have the similar coaching skill set I did. So they were able to navigate and help me. Really, one thing I love about NLP coaching is it's helping the client discover from asking questions and helping them go within and reflect, instead of installing any you should do this, you should do that. But it's like, no, what is your unconscious telling you? Like, is there a belief here that's not serving you? Is there an event not serving you? Like, using those tools effectively. But it requires a lot of communication, a lot of inner work, and a community of support, in my perspective, to really thrive in it when you're first starting.
Yeah, and that's probably true of many, many things. I like entrepreneurship, definitely, for sure. Especially, I mean, it's one thing maybe if you are raised in a family of entrepreneurs and it's what you've always known. And I've definitely know some people who have always been entrepreneurs. So it's like second nature to them. They've never considered anything else. But like, for me, I'm the only one in my family that's an entrepreneur. And I didn't really choose to be an entrepreneur, so to speak. I fell in love with modalities And it became like a choice, like it is not an option not to do this. And I was supposed to work with somebody else initially, and that fell through. And I'm like, okay, so I just learned all of these modalities in healing modalities that helped me get my health back. I really want to help other people. I don't have anyone else to go to work for. Okay, so guess what? I guess I have to start my own business. Like, all right. And then it's like, okay, but other people do this. I can do this, but so it was just that questioning. And it's probably with a lot of people with their sexuality too. Like if they get to that point where like, I'm really not happy and what my choice is or what I think my choice might be, that's something that I really want to explore. Okay, so then it becomes a non-option, and to just figure out that pathway. And I'm sure there are many, many other examples in life, and some people stay stuck or choose not to because they're afraid of other people's judgments or the pushback. And that's really unfortunate when people make that choice. I totally get that. And I'm sure there are areas, I know there are areas of my life where I have done that for a long time. It can be very difficult to step out of the box. And I agree with you that when you do that, it's really, really important to have tools for sure, and then support as well. So let's talk about some of your tools. So you've mentioned NLP a couple times. I know what NLP is, but a lot of people don't, and that stands for neuro-linguistic programming. So whatever you want to speak to maybe quickly highlight the power of NLP, I'd love that.
Yeah, so neuro-linguistic programming is the science of how to program your mind for what you desire to create versus what you don't desire. It's understanding how our unconscious mind works because it operates 95% of our bodies, and understanding that communication and the linguistics to really operate at a level we want to be operating at. And there's so many tools within NLP. It was created from modeling the most powerful hypnotherapists, therapists, and figuring out what are they doing to be so successful in creating streamlining tools that anyone can learn to apply to their life, apply to their relationships. So it's really powerful. It's radically changed my life, combining that with hypnosis and quantum transformation techniques and coaching, an NLP coaching model. That has really, it's really a bunch of elements that come together to create rapid transformation really quickly. Like I have let go of trauma in like 10 minutes or less. I've been able to release some really powerful negative emotions from significant events with these modalities really quickly. So it just allows this evolution. And that's why I've shifted paths so many times and evolved so quickly is I merit to these tools, credit, and just staying on this path of personal growth and development. And so recently I've been working with Shibari is another tool for embodiment, dropping into the body, releasing trapped anchors that are stored on the body, and sound healing. I've been a singer since I was 9, and I'm coming back to utilizing it for healing, which is fun. And then haven't announced this yet, but might as well share here. Platonic touch healing is something I'm starting to, what's the word? Not test out.
Okay, so 2 things I want to ask about. I know what Shibari is, but a lot of people don't. So let's start with that. Tell me a little bit more about Shibari, and how you utilize that with your clients.
So Shibari's Japanese rope bondage. It was originally created as a form of shame punishment for prisoners. It creates it's tight bondage on the body that creates like bulges in the body and the skin, and they would put people in precarious positions, sometimes disrobed for shame. And it's been kind of reclaimed and transformed into an art form in a way to really drop into your body, escape the monkey mind, and go within to have inner transformation and journeys. So I utilize it as a way to transform by going within and, you know, reclaiming. When I love using it is a kink, and I use it more for biohacking as a somatic tool for healing. So um some people think it's just about sex, and it's not. It is intimate, and it is can be, you know, uncomfortable at times, and the point is to surrender and release control. That's actually why I was drawn to it, because I had control issues and was trying to control everything around me. So it's really good to regain that trust.
Yeah, for me, the way that I've heard people talk about and experience shibari, it's all about that vulnerability. You know, because in the shibari experience, you're working with either the shibari master or a partner, so that you know, there's total trust and vulnerability there, and it allows your nervous system to surrender when you can go into that space. And it's not about the bondage, so to speak. It's about what comes out, what happens in your nervous system from that. Yeah, so that's just, I'm sure you can use shibari in lots of different ways, but that's my interpretation of it. I wanted to ask you more about the touch thing, and I wanted to write down what you called it, and I didn't. So remind me, please, the touch.
Yeah, healing with platonic touch.
Platonic touch.
So I wasn't really touched growing up, and I actually recently discovered, like, on this journey, like a year and a half ago, oh, touch is like my second love language. And I had this belief I didn't want to be touched by people, you know, unless, you know, it was a lover, you know. But like, even sometimes girlfriends touching me would trigger me, or if guy friends touched my shoulder, I would get triggered. I'm like, why is he touching me? And I just had all these beliefs around it. And so um I'm trained in the wheel of consent, and I'm receiving more training in it. I'm always training in that, and consent is really important to me. But I've found so much healing, especially with you know, sister wounds or wounds from the masculine and feminine, by utilizing platonic touch in these safe containers with people. I've gone to other experiences like that, where we practice consent together because of my training and the group I'm in. And there's so much potential for healing when you can feel safe with someone, when you understand consent, when you're able to communicate what you want, and you're learning that. And it's a beautiful process, and I want other people to be able to experience that. So it's something that's in the works right now before I make it an official offering, but it's probably more going to be infused in my coaching, my full program. So, but yeah, it's really powerful. Because a lot of times we have these beliefs about touch, and if a man touches me, he has some kind of intentions, or just by cuddling with a man, he's gonna try to do something, or he's gonna want to do something. Or sometimes with women, we have beliefs like, oh, I can't be cuddling with a woman and like have these feelings. That's not right. And there's so many things that we can destigmatize, and beliefs that we can break down through that process. It's a somatic experience, or somatic exercise.
That makes so much sense to me. I think we have so many boundaries of, you know, our societal expectations around touch, you know, like even just with children, I was able to always either be carrying my children or holding them or hugging them. And then as they get older, they don't want that as much. Or then if they're, you know, when they become grown, like it's not okay for you to be like snuggle with your grown child on the couch anymore because they're grown, like just this weird stuff. And I love when people talk about one of the things that has driven me crazy within COVID is that social isolation. And I've been supremely concerned for a lot of people in isolation. And I always go back in my mind to, I've read these studies about orphanages, and they have these orphanages that they did some studies on where the children there were completely taken care of from a physical perspective. You know, they were never hungry. They were always changed. They were, you know, temperature needs were always taken care of, but they weren't given attention. They weren't held. They weren't, they didn't have eye contact with people. So they didn't have that human interaction beyond getting their basic needs met. And they got very sickly. Some of the babies died. So human touch is actually essential for life and for thriving and for healing. And so I've been really concerned in COVID with all of the isolation about how that's going to affect people from a health perspective, and not just physical health, but mental health and emotional health. And it's really bothered me that there hasn't been enough people talking about that. And I've seen some people experiencing problems with that just by not having, not even not having touch, but not having proximity to human beings, let alone not being touched, people that live alone, elderly people who are already isolated. So I think that's huge. I would love to see more open communication around that and more freedom around that. Like, what is wrong with touch? I mean, there's so many meanings assigned to it, and that doesn't need to be there. So I would love to see a lot of that stuff dismantled. I think we would all be a lot healthier if we could just be like, if you go to reach out to somebody and be like, oh, is it okay if I touch you? Or, you can feel if they're uncomfortable with it, but what about if they broke down their blockages and they were like, oh, no problem, and didn't have that visceral reaction because it's something they've been trained. Like you said, is it a guy inappropriately touching a woman, or women inappropriately touching other women? Like, no, we're all human beings. We pet our animals, we caress our kids. Like, why are there so many rules around touch? It's not healthy.
Yeah, humans are starved for touch and connection. And every time I go to my Will of Consent practice group, it just becomes more apparent to me that we need this as a society. And we also need containers to do it in a safe way so we can reclaim our relationship to touch and learn how to communicate consent effectively. And I'm going to be making some offerings soon of cuddle puddle and sound healing nights, things like that. So also I'm in talks with a good friend of mine to create a women's circle for light leaders. That is, oh, sorry, I thought this was muted. Doing that now. A women's circle for light leaders that includes healing platonic touch. So to give people little tasters.
Yay. I'm so thrilled that you're doing that work. I think that's really, really needed. And and for leaders and powerful women to come together, I think that's another thing. It's very, and I definitely have some clients that fit into this, is as women, as powerful women, men, for a lot of women, especially in business roles, that means very masculine energy. I have some really successful female clients that are in very masculine, historically been, dominated by men. And so they lead from their masculine in those roles. And they're extremely successful, and it's a challenge. It's not healthy for their bodies. They don't know how to drop into their feminine. Other areas of their lives, like their relationships, may be suffering because they're feminine beings and they're cutting themselves off from that. So I would love to see a lot more women be able to access and lead from a feminine perspective, and in collaboration with others as well, because I know that this would actually be quite a bit to unpack, but I have felt a lot of contention within women relationships over the course of my life. I grew up with 3 older brothers, so I'm very comfortable around men. And I had some friends who were not comfortable around boys because they did not have that same kind of exposure. And it was uncomfortable for them that it was so easy for me. And there was some jealousy in that. And I wanted to be so close to my girlfriends that then it became this really weird energy where I didn't want to upset them. So then I didn't know how to behave because the male interaction was so easy, but my feminine friends were so important to me. And it just became this swirling mess of energy that I didn't know how to deal with when I was younger. So I would love to see women be able to be less competitive with each other and be more comfortable with each other and be more collaborative.
Yes, all about that.
So is there a particular, I mean, I know you said that you work with men and women. Is there a particular, particular characteristics or age ranges, or just you just will work with anybody that's looking for that support?
Yeah, most of my clientele are between 30 to 50 and um, into spirituality, into understanding their bodies better. A lot of people who are into entrepreneurship or want to be at some point. And yeah, people who are into the woo stuff. That helps because I'm very woo. But yeah, just those willing to, take action. I only take on people that are willing to transform their lives and fully commit. So, and just being open to the process, because you tap into your emotions and it can get emotional, and that's what I'm here for, is to help people process that and hold space for them.
Beautiful. So I know some places on social media you can find you at Summer Astrea, Astrea. But you have another handle as well. It's Conscious
Sex Queen is my handle on IG.
Queen. Excellent. Do you use that on Facebook too, or just on Instagram?
Yeah, on Facebook too. That's my Facebook page. And
Conscious Sex Queen.
that'll be my domain. summerastrea.com or conscioussexqueen.com will take you to my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing with me, for being so open. I feel that you are just such a beautiful expression of the work that you do and your intention of helping people. And I definitely know that it's something that the world really needs. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be, on this podcast and have this opportunity. So thank you so much. And yeah, just excited to share with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.